Hello everyone, and welcome to another video of Confronting Chaos, primer videos to Chaos fights where I go over the enemies, notable units on the event's banner, and why I chose the units that I did. In this video, I'll be going over the Intercession of the Wicked Heretic event Chaos fight, so let's get into it. This Chaos fight is 3 waves against old enemies. Wave 1 is against 1 Necro Raven, Wave 2 is against 2 King Behemoths, and Wave 3 is against 2 Sahagin Shamans. The Necro Raven is just like every other Phoenix type enemy, meaning it has 2 lives and its stat boost persists through both lives. While it's at low altitude, none of its single target moves are terribly scary, and in fact it won't be able to do a brave into HP attack in that state. After using Magma Wave, it'll change altitude, where it does gain a brave into HP attack. This wave might drag on a bit in turns because of the 2 health bar mechanics, but honestly it's not that hard of a wave since you can basically just rush it down. King Behemoths aren't too hard because, well, they're fairly basic behemoths. After a few turns of single target brave attacks, they'll buff themselves, after which they'll do group attacks for a few turns. I saw Lightning Lash twice, and then Meteor, and then I'm guessing they'd use Gyro Tail after that, as their buffs, if they get them, last for like 3 turns. Thankfully, none of those group attacks have brave hits, and they are all split damage instead of full group damage. The Sahagin Shaman is back, and they're as annoying as you may remember. One of them will start off buffing the enemy party to 5 buffs, while the other will do a group brave attack. As you'd imagine, if possible, try and let the one targeting your party go first, just so you can take a weaker group attack. From there, you absolutely want to try and debuff or dispel them, because as long as they have their attack buff, they gain access to their plus attacks, which deal higher damage and have a higher chance of debuffing you. They have access to powerful group and single target brave into HP attacks. So if you don't have a means of delaying or denying them HP attacks, you're going to need some form of healing. With the enemies covered, I'll quickly go over the noteworthy units you can pull for this event. Kefka does not receive a rework with this event, but he does get his LD and Burst. His LD gives him Hyperdrive, 12 single target hits that deal 50% splash HP damage. It's both odd and interesting for an LD, because while it doesn't grant him anything new per se, it extends and frames the debuffs he inflicts onto enemies, meaning you can completely remove an enemy's ability to buff themselves as long as they can't cleanse frame debuffs. The LD passive raises Kefka's attack. His burst, meanwhile, is 15 group hits that deal total HP damage to all enemies. The burst effect increases HP damage dealt to enemies based on how many debuffs they have, an obviously synergistic effect with Kefka himself. If you're pulling on the Kefka banner to build him, then you possibly got gear for Shadow and Aerith as well. Shadow is a decent fully ranged damage unit. He offers only single target damage via his base kit and has splash damage on his EX. With his EX effect, he has a follow-up attack after skill use and after countering, as he naturally has high evasion in his kit. However, he's pretty basic and doesn't have the best HP plus attack, even if it does ignore defense. Not the best choice for heavy investment though, as at this point in Japan, he still does not have an LD. Aerith, meanwhile, is still a fairly decent aura support. While her aura potencies aren't as high as the recently available Alphinos, she does offer more sources of battery and larger burst healing, as well as an overflow aura. She does suffer though from having her max bravery aura in cursed artifacts, so she naturally takes some more work to get in good shape than other units. She does have an LD that becomes available during the period for Ishtala Burst however, if that's any consideration. As for the team I chose, here's the breakdown. Kefka, as mentioned earlier, gets new weapons with this event, and as you'd imagine, it's pretty well catered to the enemies. Or I guess the other way around, since they probably made the weapon first. Being able to make debuffs framed is a very powerful piece of utility, as it negates enemy buff attempts and frame debuffs are less often cleansed than non-frame ones. I'd say he suffers the most against the first wave since it's only one target, although since he does split damage it arguably doesn't matter, he does great in this fight regardless. Shadow I purpled long ago back when he first got his EX, and he's done me well. His single target damage is very good, boosted further by any boost to attack and overflow. Dodging and countering is also fun, and coupled with Kefka's blind debuff, it meant even more of them. I've gotten my investment out of him, but he's not much of a recommendation for a new player now in my opinion. A piece of me wants the purple Aerith, it really does. I know the amount of power her 3/3 provides, smoothing out her EX rotation and giving her an even better EX cast, but I just don't know right now where I'll use her. I may try and find a place for her once like Ultimate Bahamut rolls around, but otherwise, yeah, she was just a good, sensible choice for my support unit for this fight because boosted, good auras, and also I didn't have Freya at the time. It's best to pick a support, or any other unit really, that doesn't debuff when you pick Kefka as your main or secondary damage dealer, as he alone can fill up all 6 enemy buff slots, especially so if you plan to make them framed. With that, this Chaos fight should be covered. If you want to see my footage of this fight, I'll link it in the corner and in the description below. If you liked what you saw and want to see future fights, subscribe so they show up as they're made. If you have any suggestions or thoughts, drop them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.